The gavel comes down on two bits of unfinished business. The one, the president's litany of criminal charges and the political earthquake they trigger. The other, the Ahmed Timol inquest outcome, ghosts from the past we are yet to vanquish. The Politbureau is now in session. I'm Thulasizwe Semelane. We'd love to hear from you, so send us your WhatsApp video comments to the number 082-884-6370. We ask that you send those videos throughout the week so we have time to edit and slot them into the Sunday morning discussion. In the Politbureau today, EWN senior political journalist Stephen Grootes, and later we'll be joined by Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza and the NPA's Story Pretorius. So let's start here. President Jacob Zuma is fast running out of room to maneuver around the charges of corruption he's been avoiding for about a decade now. Or is he? Well, the Supreme Court of Appeal has delivered the latest hammer blow, endorsing the North Gauteng High Court's judgment of last year, which said the NPA boss Mokotedi Mpshe's decision to drop the charges was irrational and invalid, and that Zuma must have his day in court.
Discontinuing a prosecution in respect of which the merits are admittedly good, and in respect of which there is heightened public interest because of the breadth and nature of the charges and the person at the centre of it who holds the highest public office, can hardly redound to the NPA's credit or advance the course of justice or promote the integrity of the NPA. Regrettably, the picture that emerges is one of Mr. Mpshe and Mr. Hofmeyr straining to find justification for the termination of the prosecution. Thus, the conclusion of the court below that the decision to terminate the prosecution was irrational cannot be faulted.
Today's win is a win for justice. It's a win for the rule of law in this country and ultimately for the people of South Africa. Jacob Zuma will not defeat the ends of justice. We certainly will not watch that happen. So as we stand now, the matter is now straightforward. The charges now stand, and a court of law must hear the matter.
No, the first thing is whether the NPA will decide to charge the president. Now you're putting the cart before the horse. The judgment says the NPA must decide. Now, it has not decided yet. Let's allow that process to take its course, and then the ANC will decide thereafter.
So let's talk. Stephen Grootes, is this the beginning of the end for the Stalingrad strategy that we've said that President Jacob Zuma has adopted with regard to this issue of these charges?
Good day to you, Thulas. I mean, I suppose what you would say is that it really depends on how much money you have to pay lawyers, and if the state is paying for your legal fees, then President Jacob Zuma's Stalingrad defense probably has a very long way to go. What you've got to look at is the legal side of things and then the political side. Yeah. And in a way, if you look at the legal side, obviously this shows you that the decision in 2009 was a nonsense. But we knew that already. Anyone who read the decision at the time, anyone who was in the room, as I was when Mokotedi Mpshe announced the decision, knew that. We knew that before. You look at all the other court judgments, we all have always known this. What it does mean is that this particular tactic is over. If I were President Jacob Zuma, and I'm ascribing quite bad motives to him here, all you would do is you need to give Advocate Sean Abrahams a reason not to charge you. You blame the KPMG report or the auditor Johan van der Walt or something like that. It's a nonsense too, but then the DA has to go to court again. And that process, which will be quicker than this process, I think, could easily take another 2 years. But the political side, of course, is a very different question.
So this takes us to that side, the political side, because, you know, all of this is happening in a year that the ANC is going to its elective conference and President Jacob Zuma is in his last lap as ANC president. So in a way, this will test whoever gets elected in December in the ANC in terms of their political will to leave the NPA be, to carry on its duties, etc.
Yes, and I mean, I can't help but feel that in some way this has got to be a discussion. What happens to President Zuma after the conference? And I mean, and we know this, it depends on who wins. And Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, it's the, you know, the ex-wife he seems to trust as opposed to the political rivals that he clearly doesn't. some people might say the easiest thing for the ANC and for the country is to say, well, let's get let's win. As Pravin Gordhan suggested this week that, you know, if Cyril Ramaphosa wins, then President Zuma must be removed from office quickly. Of course, if there's going to be a negotiated process, well, the one negotiating card you have as the new leader of the ANC would be the charges. You can say, well, if you don't leave office, we will make sure through our political control of the NPA that actually these charges are put against you. All of that gets a bit more complicated, though, because in 2019, the elections then, the biggest issue is likely to be corruption. And a party that continued to protect President Jacob Zuma would surely find that a very difficult position to be in.
So that becomes a test for whoever wins in December. Stephen, talk to me about this decision falling on the lap of Shaun Abrahams and the National Prosecuting Authority in the context of the kind of criticism that they've faced, also in the context of state capture and weakening of institutions.
Well, I mean, if you look at the decisions that Shaun Abrahams has made since he was made head of the NPA, he dropped charges against Advocate Nomgcobo Jiba, who had faced charges that were put against her by the previous head of the NPA. He, of course, put fraud charges against Pravin Gordhan and then withdrew them. That doesn't look like someone who doesn't behave politically. Why would he allow the charges to be brought in the first place if he then decided to withdraw them? Did he not read the documents? I mean, really? So if you look through the history of him and the complete inaction on the Gupta leak emails and all of those things, really, I don't think anyone seriously believes, despite what he will say, that he is going to actually do what he should do in this case and put proper corruption charges against President Jacob Zuma. He, of course, will have a defense to that. I'd like to see it.
All right, let's pause for a moment and listen to our viewers. It's time for us to hear from you, the clever people, on this matter.
I love the president so much. But I feel like his name been dragged in the mud for so long. If I were him, I would just say, no, I have done nothing wrong. Take me to court. I mean, really simple. Take me to court, clear my name. I'm tired of people suspecting I did 1, 2, 3, which I didn't do, according to him. So he must just go to court.
Jacob Zuma has proven a number of times that he doesn't respect the laws or the constitution of this country. He has proven that a number of times. It had got to a point where Jacob Zuma feels that whatever that happens here in South Africa, whether South Africa drown or whether South Africa, whatever that happens, he's at the point now where if the people of South Africa don't intervene, we might face another crisis here in South Africa, just like other countries here in Africa. It will get to a point where the law has no power.
Fascinating views there, and we thank you for them. Keep them coming. Stephen, this is what it boils down to, isn't it? The confidence that the people have in the rule of law when they see someone like the President of the Republic, who swore to uphold the Constitution and all other laws, in a way sort of being able to maneuver and outmaneuver the legal system.
Yes, although we must say, and it's important to stress this started with Thabo Mbeki. When he was president, he appointed Bulelani Ngcuka head of the NPA, and it was his actions that actually have helped to allow President Zuma to escape prosecution for so long. He did not do the right thing in that case. And then, of course, Zuma, I mean, don't forget, the first person he appointed to head the NPA, Advocate Menzi Simelane, I mean, a man who was found essentially not fit and proper by the Constitutional Court. The bigger problem, of course, is that people lose trust in and faith in the rule of law if it is not correctly applied, and certain people are seen to be as favourites, if certain people are seen to escape prosecution.
Does this boil down to the risk of South Africa going the way of you know, the strongman syndrome of Africa that people, that analysts usually talk to? Strong men versus strong institutions. Is this the conversation we are likely to be having leading to 2019?
I think some people try and make it about that conversation. For me, South Africa has always been very different to those societies. We are a multi-class society. That's the first thing. We have an urban middle class that is much bigger than many of those other countries. Also, the civil society is bigger. We have a free press. I mean, that's the huge difference between us and so many other places, is ENCA and EWN being able to say what they think. At the same time, there are many different groups of people in society who, if someone tries to stay in power for too long, will gang up against that person. You're already seeing it, by the way. People ganged up against Thabo Mbeki in support of Jacob Zuma. Now some of those people are ganging up against Zuma because they think that he's doing the wrong thing, and so they're supporting Cyril Ramaphosa. And so we have a society that allows that to happen. Strongman societies don't have any of those things.
All right, let me take advantage of the fact that I have you in studio. The ANC is going to its conference. We've got no more than 10 or so weeks remaining to the date set for that conference. But it seems another day, another court challenge, this time the Eastern Cape recently elected Provincial Executive Committee being challenged. You've got 2 cases on the go in the Free State. Will we even get to conference at this rate, Stephen?
I think the ANC actually has no choice. Matthews Pauser said on 702 the other day that if there is no conference, then then there will be no mandate. In other words, the mandate runs out to the National Executive Committee and the other officials. And so President Jacob Zuma legally would cease to be leader of the ANC after December because his term literally expires. So he could, and the NEC could say, let's do this or let's do that, and any member could go over to court, or don't even have to, and just say, I'm not obeying you because you have no legal authority over me. That surely leads to chaos and leads to a splinter within the ANC. It leads to, in a way, the wholesale implosion. That strengthens Zuma in the short term, by the way, because there'll be no political check on his power as president of the country. But if you game all of that out, that to me, if there's no conference, looks like certainly a split ANC and possibly even an early election.
All right, Stephen, thank you so much for those incisive inputs here on the Politbureau. After the break, we get to the other unfinished business, truth and justice for apartheid-era crimes.